The Babylon Project was our last best hope for peace. It failed. But in the year of the Shadow War, it became something greater. Our last best hope for victory. The year is 2260. The place, Babylon 5.
Hello and welcome to Chats, a television podcast, Season 6, Chatzylon 5. My name is Alan, and through the mysteries of our redemption, may Almighty God release you from all punishments in this life and in the life to come. May he open to you the gates of paradise and welcome you to everlasting joy. Father, look with compassion on your servant Magellan, who has trusted in your promises. Welcome him to your kingdom in peace. By the authority which the apostolic see has given me, I grant you a full pardon and remission of all your sins. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Welcome,
Amen.
Magellan.
Hey, thank you. Thank you,
Hey,
brother.
man. You know what's weird? I was raised Christian, so when I was writing that intro, I was gonna be in the name of Magellan, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, or something, or put you in one.
but you couldn't do it.
I was I'm not allowed, which is so weird.
Honestly, I was feeling a similar apprehension that you were about to do that sort of thing, and I was worried about it.
Yeah, well, it took me a couple rewrites to be how can I do this in a way that just works and isn't gonna bump into anything bad?
Yeah,
I forgive you, Magellan. Magellan.
I forgive you too.
Erlin and Magellan. Infinite playlist.
Oh, I love that movie. That's our Swede of Zach and what is it? Not Zach and Miri. Oh my God.
Zach and Miri make an infinite. Nick and Nora's infinite playlist. Zach and Miri make a porno.
Make an infinite porno.
That sounds exhausting. You need a lot of water for that.
Movie titles with two people's names are not good titles.
Didn't those also come out in a similar time?
Yeah, yes.
Zach and Miri was 2008. Nick and Nora 2008. Oh my God.
Yeah, I guess that was just the thing in 2008. Was
which one had sweet
blank and blanks, blank and blank?
Mike and Ike's fuck house. Which one had Sweet Disposition by the Temper Traps in it? I think that's
Nick and Nora.
That makes sense, right? The one with the music?
Yeah.
Not the one with the sex.
Right.
Also, when's the last time you saw a movie that was just about sex? What? Hall Pass?
God.
It's just, you could do a whole thing about bad raunchy comedies.
Oh my God. That would be a great podcast. Just here are some throwaway awful comedies that we're going to watch.
Yeah. None of these matter. None of them are memorable. This is somebody's favorite movie. That's how it always is.
That's great. Yeah. The show can be called Somebody Quotes This.
Somebody puts this on their Facebook.
Don't steal that because I want it. I'm going to do that show. Somebody Quotes This.
Somebody quote Magellan on this. Somebody quotes this. That's his.
Yeah. If you're interested, let us know and we'll do that show.
What was the movie from 2013? I saw this in theaters. Please don't tease me. Where a bunch of college kids walk around a college campus and they get lost in the middle of the night and they meet a weird cast of characters and it's they're going on a beer run. And
are you thinking of Superbad, dude?
No, shush. No, it's 2013. I'll never find what this is, actually. What? 2013 comedy.
Who's in it? What happens? Let me help.
It's a bunch of young white boys. And they had the one ethnic friend.
You're really not narrowing it down there, dude.
You're right.
At all.
2013 movies. I have a list of movies I saw in 2013. Let me see if it's in here.
Okay.
Tangled, Minecraft, Layer Cake, 21 and Over. 21 and Over! That's what it was. That was easy. 21 Over, film from 2013, starring Miles Teller, Skylar Astin, and Justin Chon. Two white guys.
Holy crap!
Oh
wow.
My God. I nailed it, though.
cast.
Yeah, and they just like walked around like a college campus area. The night before his big med school interview, a promising student celebrates his 21st birthday with his two best friends.
No.
It was so bad. I might have seen it twice. I'm so sorry. Regardless, things that aren't bad are well, Magellan, I was gonna ask you, how are you? How are you doing in the cosmic sense, the big sense?
I'm doing fine.
He's at school, everyone.
Yeah, I got a lot of grading to do, but it's chill. I'm catching up.
It's chill.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. This is an exciting week of Chatzylon 5 because we watched 2 episodes this week. Big shocker.
Whoa!
It's wild.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my god.
Whoa.
I'm in the mood for some pizza, you guys.
I'm in the mood for the pizza, you good.
This week we watched Season 3, Episode 3, A Day in the Strife, as well as Season 3, Episode 4, Passing Through Gethsemane. We learned how to pronounce the word.
Sorry, everybody.
Nobody corrected
us. Know it.
First, we're going to be discussing A Day in the Strife, which was written by JMS, directed by the man himself, David J. Eagle. It aired November 20th of 95, and it takes place from January 15th to the 16th of 2260. Magellan, what happened in A Day in the Strife?
Well, in this episode, sorry I got distracted because I got a text from the Bernie Sanders campaign, which I do not want to support, but I gave money to in 2016, and they are trying to get me to give them some more. But I'm all in for Elizabeth Warren, everybody. Go ahead and give your money to Elizabeth Warren. In this episode, I hate you, Bernie Sanders, for distracting me. The Babylon 5 crew makes contact with a strange alien probe. Jakar's standing among the Narn is threatened from without and within.
Is that what without means? Can you use it like that?
No, I don't think so.
Threatened from without.
Yeah, how would you rephrase that? Threatened from outside and inside? Like, there's not a better.
No, you're right.
There's not a better.
It's threatened from many sides. Threatened from all angles.
That's just lame.
What did you think about A Day in the Strife? I flipped the script. I'm asking you.
Whoa, you're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you're a member of the Bernie Sanders campaign. Asking me things. Wow, my security question for this website is who is your favorite historical person?
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders. Day in the Strife. Listen, when you texted me about it and you were like, oh, I started the episode, it's fine. I went into it thinking, okay, this is going to be kind of a whatever episode. And I feel like you didn't watch enough of the episode to make that assessment because it is very good.
Yeah?
Yeah, the alien probe part is dumb.
Uh-huh, extremely.
That part's dumb. But the rest is very good.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of like catching the check that our mouths... What's the fucking phrase?
Yeah, it's catching the check in our mouths and chewing it up.
And just munching on it. Mouth check. So you do before, like speech, you do a mouth check. You go, I have a mouth. I have one. It's real. I have it. Yeah. What I was trying to say is, like, we always talk about how cool would it be if Babylon 5 just had an episode where people talk.
I got it right, by the way. It's William Jennings Bryan. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, good. We're always like, what if people just talked? What if people just like walked through their feelings and went through the process of like understanding each other through conversation? And
yeah, we love this shit. Oh my god, we get so happy about this. This is
a very like Trekky episode where it's just people on the ship talking. You know, there's a little bit of plot. I mean, the probe technology stuff is a really dumb means to an end, but in that we get a lot of satisfying conversations that we've wanted to see for a while, and I like that. Yeah. It does start on a bad foot though, because we have the scene where Sheridan, Ivanova, and company are holding a meeting about the use of weapons on Babylon 5. Like, what's the purpose of this gathering?
No, it's something about, like, that's the thing, is it's just glossed over, but I think it's about trade restrictions or shipping, something like that.
Mm-hmm. And people are unhappy about the situation, and they're kind of saying, Sheridan, you're getting kind of high and mighty. You're very full of yourself. You're still this military guy in our minds who is controlling the ship and what we get to do, and that doesn't seem fair to us. It doesn't seem like we have a say. Typical, like, the average person feeling unsatisfied in a society run by higher ups,
Yeah.
And he tries to address them, and they talk about, like, you have a gun. We don't have guns. We only have these, like, sticks that we use to when we're doing work or whatever, these, like, poles. And so anything we try to say back to you, you just get to shoot us because you have that option. Mm-hmm. And he says, all right, cool. And he pulls this moment that it's supposed to feel really badass, I guess, where he puts the gun down. He gives it to the guy, puts it in the guy's pocket, and says, you have the gun now. I'll take the stick. Let's fight. And then the guy's like, no, that's not fair, because if I shoot you, then me and my entire family die. That's not even anything. Like, that's not going to get me anywhere. So this doesn't seem fair. Sheridan's like, all right, well, do it then. Like, you can try it, because if I die, then everyone gets promoted. Good plan? Right. The guy hesitates, gives him the gun back, and says sorry. And everyone is like, wow, Sheridan, that was awesome. Wow, oh my God. You're becoming so badass. Like, I think Ivanova in that part is like, man, Sheridan's like really growing into his own in his role. Like, this is so great for him. And I just don't love it. I don't love this like making
it's really
Sheridan
bad. Yeah. Well, I just don't like it when this show aggrandizes machismo like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we're supposed to think that that's cool. I don't know.
And then he does the dumb gag. A lot of the Sheridan plot in this episode is punctuated by bad gags. Like, he shows Ivanova, like, she's like, wow, that's so dangerous that you would give the, like, random person a loaded gun. And he's like, it's not. And he just pulls a cap out, and he's like, that's the bullet. He didn't take the bullet. I took it out when he wasn't looking. Yeah. It's like, wow, good. So that's great. So, the episode starts out, and you're just like, ugh, is this going to be like Sheridan is trying to be cool and I don't like it episode? Mm-hmm. But it's not. After that, David Corwin receives a distress signal that is not threatening. It's just like proof that they understand language, that whatever is sending them the message is like smart. And they're like, that's weird. And eventually they translate it and learn that this probe, or this alien probe, holds like all of the technology in the known, beyond the known universe. It has the cure to every disease.
Right.
And better jump gate technology and big guns. For the
Shadow.
Shadow.
I was like, okay. I checked out of that plot within the first 30 seconds of it being described to me.
Right.
Because you just know that on a show, that on this show, if someone's like, oh, weird, this thing has a cure to every disease.
What?
It's either doesn't, A, or B, is not going to give it to you.
Yeah.
Because it's Babylon 5 and things go badly. So I was just not
there ends up being no tension to that, because you know that it can't work.
Yeah.
Or if it does, then it'll be like, the real secret to medicine was in you all along. And it's like, shut up. Thanks. Great.
And
that'd be a really bad ending.
Yeah, so we can just fast forward to how it resolves. Ivanova is like, get me those answers to these SAT2 subject test questions. And the people on Earth are like, yeah, we got most of them, but some of them are really hard. And like the guy who knows them just is in the Bahamas right now. So
he's sipping boat drinks.
Yeah, he's listening to Jimmy Buffett right now. And
Franklin's pissed. We'll talk about Franklin, but Franklin's pissed about that.
He gets really angry. And then Sheridan comes in. He's like, wait, what if it's a trick? What if it really doesn't have all of the medical things? And
because his argument is like, why would an advanced society that's trying to test lower societies give them the technology to get up to their level? Like, doesn't that seem unnecessary?
Yeah.
That's like giving your prey the ability to defeat you. He's like, that doesn't make any sense. It probably doesn't have our tech. And then it's like just the last second, like, do it or don't do it, send or don't send. He's like, don't send. And they're like, oh my god, we're gonna die. And then they don't die.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept to think about an alien species that tricks other civilizations into proving their intelligence so that it can blow them up and eliminate them. Mm-hmm. But as a plot, it's like, okay, that's it.
Also, we don't actually see what the questions are, but we get the implication that, yeah, they're like high-level science questions and stuff. Like, oh my god, we like have research on this, but we've only started researching it briefly. Like, we don't have the answer to like this hard algebra. So we have like scientists all over the world and like mathematicians that are breaking their brains trying to figure it out. And it's like, why? Like, what is the benefit of knowing these things that makes them a higher civilization? We don't get into that. It just simply ends, and we get another like gag to cut the drama out of a section. Mm-hmm. Sheridan is like, oh no, we live. Now I have to go to a work meeting.
Been there, bro.
Who amongst us can't relate to hating that we're still alive because, oh no, now I have to do my job. It's pretty funny, but it's like, that's the capper to your A plot, guys.
Yeah.
Avalon 5 consistently having better B plots than A plots.
I also don't like that the plot hinges on Ivanova naively believing something and then Sheridan saying, actually, you're dumb.
You're a foolish woman.
I'm not crazy about that.
Bleh.
So let's throw that in the dumpster.
Slurp.
And pretend that that's not part of this episode, and then the rest of what we have is like the best episode ever. Maybe not the best ever, but it's really, really good.
It's one of the best ones, yes. And Aaron comes on the ship to replace it. Oh wait, no. What order do we want to do these in? I'm sorry. There's a bunch of conversations.
Whatever you want to do. What's most exciting to you right now?
I mean, I want to talk about Jakar.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Narn comes on the ship and he's like, I'm here to replace Jakar. And you're like, wow, that's crazy. I don't have names of these Narn. I wish, I mean, I can find them. But basically the replacement is like, you are needed on the Narn homeworld to make peace talks with the Centauri. We are planning to surrender to them and we need you to do that. Because people still believe in you even though we stripped you of all your titles, there's still like the assumption that you're the leader. So if anyone is going to like ask for surrender, it's going to be you. Jakar's pissed.
Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, they've already been conquered.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the fact that Jakar is leading a resistance effort that is like interfering with certain Centauri operations. And this guy's saying, you need to stop doing that for now. So that they think that they've crushed our spirit, and then we'll get them back later.
We'll give them peaceful surrender. It's going to be a long-term victory for us. It just for now we have to tell them that we're not trying anymore to rebel. Obviously, he doesn't feel good about this. The thing I immediately love about Jakar and his interactions with the other Narn is it's true. Even though he doesn't have his title anymore, people really respect him. And you know, to jump ahead a little bit, when he is stopped by the rest of the Narn from leaving, and they say, if you're going to leave, you have to get through us. They say, like, everyone always has a little bit of fight left in them. And, you know, even when your back is up against the wall, you still have to fight till the last minute. And it's better to die a free man than to live in chains or whatever. And they're like, Jakar, you know who taught us that awesome, like, saying and idea? That was you, dude. You're the reason that we are able to live right now, as you know, attempting to win back our freedom. You're the whole reason for that. So we need you here. We need your wisdom and your He's an orator, which is amazing too. Like, it's not implied that he is well revered in the society because of his battle prowess. It's like, no, you say good words.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot.
The guys are, by the way, Nafar is the one who tells
the replacement.
That is the replacement guy. And then Talon is his like bodyguard with the sword.
Yes, badass.
And I mean, the ending is kind of cheesy where everyone's like, no, Jakar, you have to get through me to leave. But I really like where Talon is like, he draws his sword and Jakar gets pissed. says you can't draw one of those without drawing blood, blah 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 blah.
Speaking of corny,
but then this line is so great where Talon says, "I carry my sword in my hand. You carry yours in your heart and your mind. The way I see it, that gives you a 2-to-1 advantage in arms. Be fair, citizen Jakar." And Jakar's like, "Aww.
Aw, you rascals! You do love
you
me.
got me." Everyone goes off to go like have smoothies, and then Talon's like, I forgot. Now I gotta cut my hand open to fulfill the honor code or whatever. Really, really great plot, though. I mean, Jakar continues everything that Jakar does. I'm floored by that performance.
Yeah, Cassilis brings a like Shakespearean weight to all of his scenes, and what's great is all of the Narn are kind of doing that. So there's like a scene where they're all in a hallway, and like everybody pulls a weapon on each other at the same time, and everyone is yelling and everyone is speaking this flowery language, and then Jakar's like, "What are we doing? We work together. We can't have a Shakespeare plot without an actual bad guy. Because if we're killing each other, then we're just bringing our whole society down even further into the mud. Let's take this energy and direct it somewhere else. Instead of with being like, oh, I got him. Time to shove a knife in my brother. Foolish, guys. Enough of that." And he's yelling and he's bringing this like gravitas to it. And I freaking love it. I can't get enough of this Jakar performance.
I really wish that I could like use clips from this show in class and like beam my understanding of the show into students' minds, so that I could just be like, okay, so we all know who Jakar is. Now let's look at this scene, because that debate that's had between Jakar and Nafar around essentially, do you accommodate your oppressor and try to end your oppression by starting within the system, or do you always resist without concession? That's a debate that is relevant to, to the study of colonialism throughout world history. It's also relevant to, what I was thinking about was that I present that kind of discussion to students when we talk about African American leaders in the late 1800s, like Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. Then essentially boil it down to like Booker T. Washington is saying, accept segregation and try to carve out a livable life for yourself by working within the expectations of this system. And Du Bois is saying, like, no, you can't accept a violation of our civil rights in any circumstance. And that's essentially the debate that's had between Nafar and Jakar here.
Yeah, why do we rebel, and why do we choose to do that, and when is it worth considering not doing that?
Yeah, and what is like the best way to resist?
Yeah.
And like, is it always that like unqualified resistance, like resistance without resistance no matter what? Is that always the best way, or is that kind of about pride? Or like, does it need to be about pride and that's why it's the best way? I don't know. There's a lot to consider there.
And what's great is that it's also paralleled against realizing, like, the reason you want to resist is because your captor, the person who has power over you, is never going to say, oh, I feel bad for being this evil today. I'm going to stop. Like, they are never going to make the decision to give up unless prompted. Because we see Londo at the beginning of this episode talking to one of the Narn.
To Nafar,
To Nafar, and just the absolute heel he is. He's like, I'd love to... I would love to visit the Narn homeworld. It's such a beautiful place. Are all the nightmarish policies that we set up there still going? Are you guys still in camps? Are they still like just committing genocide on a slow but steady basis over there? That's amazing. They're doing really great work on the Narn homeworld. And he's saying it to this guy's face with eye contact and a calm demeanor that's just chilling.
It was awful, yeah. And his line about, like, the last time I was there, I didn't get a good look at it.
Yeah.
Because, like, all the bombs and explosions were in the way. Holy crap.
Yeah, so your captor is gonna be that guy all
the
time.
Yeah, they're never going to volunteer or say, like, okay, you've earned me being less terrible.
Because they don't have to.
Right, and they wouldn't want to. There's no reason for them to do that. So that's Jakar's argument, but Nafar's argument is like, okay, dude, but, like, you're here on Babylon 5.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy for you to talk about what needs to be done, and to mess with, like, food drops because you're not starving.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, we kind of have to concede something for people to survive long enough to be liberated.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, that's an interesting debate.
You can't rebel so hard that you come back to an empty wasteland of no people. Like,
right.
These are the people that you're trying to save, and your actions are directly harming them.
Right.
And that's not helping anyone.
And you're doing this because, like, on some level, Jakar, this is about you want to be the guy who saves Narn.
Yeah. You have
like,
that confidence.
It's kind of about you.
And you have that detachment of being from Washington, D.C., where you're not worrying about what's going on, like, basically, from being on Babylon 5, I mean, and not seeing it day to day. And it's like, yeah. Because he can argue all he wants. Like, I see them. I know people. I have people here that go down there and talk to them. I have contacts. But it's like, you haven't gone. Everything Jakar has done for the Narn homeworld has been done remotely. Like, he just is, he's losing his role as, like, the on the ground boots guy.
Mm-hmm.
Boots on the ground guy, excuse me. So it's really interesting stuff. It's really, like, powerful stuff. Again, good performances, good yelling, lots of good yelling.
And you can walk away from this episode and have different opinions about who's right, which I think is what makes it so strong and well written.
Yeah, Jakar doesn't come out of this like, damn, I nailed it. I'm really smart this week, you guys.
Yeah.
He's just like, I have things to think about. So we love Jakar. Speaking of Londo and the cursed man himself, another heartbreaking scene. It's only spread apart like by a couple scenes, but Londo is speaking to Delenn about how he thinks that Veer should go to the Minbari homeworld as another ambassador. He mentions that he sees a young version of himself in Veer. He says, I want him to be on there, so I have a remote version of myself on the planet. I want to talk to you guys, and he's more intelligent and capable than people give him credit for. He deserves it. And Veer doesn't want it. He tells Veer, you're gonna go to Minbar, and Veer's like, I don't want to go there. He's like, no, but I've seen it. You're supposed to go there. Like, it makes sense in my head. Well, I don't care what you want. He's very parental in this moment. Mm-hmm. He says, you'll enjoy it. It's good for your career.
Right, and I think what we need to highlight is the reason that Londo goes to Delenn is because of how Veer reacts to when he talks to Nafar. And Veer's like, was that necessary? We already defeated them. You're being, like, cruel to this dude. And Londo's like, don't you see? We have to break their spirit and break their pride and humiliate them. Otherwise, they're going to rise up against us. And what Londo's recognizing is that, like, he doesn't actually have the heart to do that. Mm-hmm. And if Veer is there, Veer is going to convince him that what he's done is wrong. And so he wants to get that conscience as far away from him as possible.
The only way he can be that ruthless consistently is to get rid of his conscience.
Right.
So
when he says to Delenn, like, oh, it's going to be good for his career, my favorite line of the episode, where she says, thank you, Londo. Now the truth, please. Like, okay, you've done your bullshit.
Now tell me what you meant to say.
Yeah.
And he pulls this classic, like, awful person move. I don't even know how to describe the tone of the line, but he says, sometimes I miss that we don't talk to Len. Like, you know, me and you, we used to be best buds. Like, I love how we used to have like long late night conversations over drinks and like talk about philosophy. And she just breaks in and she's like, we never talked, Londo.
He's chronically, like, he can't get away from manipulating people and wanting to seem like the good guy or like the injured person here.
Yeah.
When he's awful. He's terrible.
This is the same energy as him in that other last season episode where he's like, oh, it's Mr. Garibaldi. You know, he's my friend. We hang out all the time.
Yeah.
I love him. And it's like, yeah, the last time you saw Garibaldi, he said he was afraid of you.
Right.
So you don't have that anymore, but you can keep... He's trying to say this to himself. He's almost saying, like, I wish that we talked because I see something in Delenn that I think I would have liked, but I never made the effort because she could get in the way of my plans.
Right, because she was never of use to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is
and
just
now
very
that,
sad.
Now that she's of use to me, I'm starting to realize that maybe she was a cool person.
We never talked, Londo. Ugh. Blasted.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, we're just continuing down the hole. The last, like, tentpole of this episode's, like, sad conversations is Garibaldi and Dr. Franklin having a bit of a day together, talking about their problems. Eventually, they sit down for a dinner together, and Garibaldi's cooking, and it's like, this is great. This is awesome. Garibaldi's like, you know, I only have one. I don't even drink wine with dinner anymore because once I start, I don't know how to stop with alcohol.
Mm-hmm. As a way of asking Franklin if he's using stims. Because when they were at the bar, Franklin was like, oh, I gotta go pee. And then he comes back out and he's like, oh, I'm feeling good. All right, time to dance. It's gonna blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I understand what that means.
Yeah.
And he says, yeah, I can only have one because I have to know when to stop. Just like, I don't know, completely unrelated, that whole thing with your stims, right? You liking those stims?
Mm-hmm.
And it's wild how real this conversation is as a story about drug addiction, like an alcoholic talking to a drug addict, and the drug addict says, mine are prescription. It's totally legal what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, like public alcoholism is like looked upon and frowned upon, but like whatever, narcotic pain addiction or whatever, uppers, whatever, it's all, I have prescriptions for it. I'm taking it as dosed. And he's like, are you? Or did you take one in the bathroom and not tell me about it? And he's like, that's not important. And then Garibaldi's like, did you take one in the bathroom or not? Are you avoiding your own truth? You know, now tell me the truth, basically, again. And Franklin's like, I don't know. Is it a problem? And he's like, yeah, dude, I'm seeing it as a problem. And it's just, this drug addiction plot is so real. It's so real and sad. Because it can only end in disaster. And when Garibaldi, your like ultimate empath, broken man, sad man, doing his best man, wants to help out his friends man, is telling you have a problem, it's time to take a look at yourself and say, shit. And he makes up excuses. He says, like, I work 37-hour shifts every day, which is a really funny line. Like, every day I work 37 hours. And it's like, wait, that doesn't... You work more than a day every day. So what you're saying is you're never not working. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And he's like, yeah, you're not. Yeah, he says I have to. He's making up the excuse that I've heard from addicts before, which is like, I have to. No one else is going to do it. We're understaffed. We don't get enough money. It's not my fault. It's the government's fault for not paying us enough that I overwork. Garibaldi's like, no, I looked at the logs. You're overworking yourself on purpose.
Yeah.
You have the help, which is so fucked. You have the help. You're not taking it because you don't trust anyone.
And just, I love the acceptance that Garibaldi has to give because he knows when he's intervening that Franklin's going to reject it because that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And he just has to say, okay, if you've got it handled, you do.
And
he has to wait for him to come around and recognize the problem himself.
Yeah, because that's the only way for this to move forward.
Yeah.
And the moment where at least the viewer is put into stark like understanding that this is a problem is like we referred to earlier when they're waiting for doctors on Earth to give answers to the biology portion of the test given by the aliens. Franklin is on a call with one of them and they're like, yeah, the guy's on vacation. I can't make him come off of vacation to answer this dumb question. And he yells at her and flips out and like knocks over a table and like everybody he's working with stops and they're like, what are you doing, dude? You just yelled at like a high-up official for no reason and closed the phone in her face. You can't tell me you don't have a problem anymore.
Yeah.
And the scene that starts that whole thing where he's like trying to diagnose another alien who's dying, and he's just like saying like, does this hurt? And the alien can't speak his language, and the translator isn't there, so he's like pressing down on the guy being like, what, does this hurt? Like, can somebody please tell me what this guy is saying so I can figure out how to do my fucking job?
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's a lot.
The way it's so much. This is such a heavy show, man. I say it every week.
Yeah.
But it really is.
I didn't think they would seriously address the stims thing, to be honest. I thought it was going to be a dropped thread.
Drug abuse, especially in TV shows in the 90s, is such a fraught topic and often handled so poorly.
Yeah.
And I gotta give props to the writers team in Babylon 5 and their performance from the actor who plays Franklin for just committing to it and saying like, no, we're gonna do this. We're not gonna like say it and then be like, you got better. Like we're gonna make this the plot of the episode.
Yeah.
Richard Biggs, rest in peace, Richard Biggs. Great actor. So yeah, this is just an acting showcase, honestly, across the board.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, Veer leaves. The episode ends with Veer leaving. Londo turns back and says, oh, nope, he's gone. Yep. Veer is going to Minbar now, which is very sad.
Sinclair and just become
the Rangers.
Become a Ranger.
Practice to accept his future role as ambassador, emperor of the Centauri Republic.
Right.
Please. What if that's just how they set it up? Is he's on Earth for a while and Sinclair's like, wait, who's the emperor? And he's like, no one. He's like, dude, it.
You got this. Come on,
dude,
bro.
You got this.
You'd be great.
Yeah. So, great episode. Good conversations. I adore this little batch of TV.
Oh yeah.
Let's read some emails, John. How's that sound?
That sounds awesome.
Our first email this week comes from our buddy Jonathan. Hi, Jonathan. He says, a fan was leaked some of the original Babylon 5 CGI. He rendered out a bit to see what the show could look like with all the original files, not updated except for the resolution of the video that it spits out. It looks pretty cool. Yeah, I took a little look at this. This is another part of how the Babylon 5 CG looks better at the right resolution. But he goes on to say something topical for the week. A thing I noticed in my own rewatch is how much of a difference the director of the episode can have. I remembered Convictions, directed by Michael Vehar, as a weaker episode, and script-wise, I still felt that. But paying attention to cinematography, Vehar really keeps things visually very interesting. There's an upside-down shot at a minute 37 in the episode that you don't see with other directors. I mostly like this one just because we don't think too much about the director now. I feel like we always, and this is culturally true, focus a bit on the writer a lot and the scripting.
I think we used to talk about direction more, or it was more visible to us in other shows. Like Farscape, maybe we talked more about direction. Yeah,
well, it just felt for a while like Babylon 5 had a house style.
Yeah.
Which I think is what Jonathan is saying, but the last... Sometimes you'll notice little directorial touches, like upside down shots or little bits of good framing. I definitely noticed that in Gethsemane, really beautifully framed shots. And that's Adam Nimoy, who I think is new to directing in Babylon 5. But yeah, so, directors make a big difference. That's a good point. But thank you, Jonathan. And John, we have another email here, I believe, from Dan.
Yes, we do. Dan is writing us an email about the episodes Matters of Honor and Convictions, which we watched last week. Mm-hmm. Dan says, for what's arguably the first time, Londo lands in a spot where he has no choice. Talking with Morgan. His older choices have had time to gain a momentum that maybe really has gone beyond his control. His breakup conversation with Morden didn't go how he had planned or wanted. Londo's goal wasn't just for him to quit personally dealing with Morden, but rather he wanted to break up the Centauri Republic from Morden's agents. And with Morden dealing with Rifa now, the impression we've had about Rifa to this point is that he has even fewer reservations than Londo about doing whatever it takes to further his ambitions. I also thought that Delenn and Lennier had an interesting conversation later on when Delenn was like, Londo's sort of a bad dude. You saving him might come back to haunt us. And Lanier's response is basically, it was purely reflexive on my part to save him, but I agree. That may turn out to be a bad thing in the long run. Whether or not that turns out to be true, I appreciate that characters are having these sorts of conversations, especially these characters. Yeah, the discussion of, like...
is it worth saving this guy?
Yeah, right. Like, is it actually a good act to have saved his life?
Right. It's dark.
Dan goes on to say, like Magellan, I'm a Marcus Cole fan in spite of myself. Yeah, there are many of us out there. On paper, there's so much about him that I should be put off by. In some ways, he feels very fan-servicey, yeah. And in others, he's an amalgam of genre and action movie stereotypes that aren't necessarily good. Maybe it's Jason Carter's performance. I have to admit that I've had a couple of opportunities to chat socially with Jason Carter. My opinion may be colored by the fact that he drips with charm in person.
Whoa. I'd love to hear more stories about what Jason Carter's like IRL.
Yeah, me too. When Delenn was pontificating about how unbeatable a shadow vessel is, I don't think you guys properly deconstructed how messed up that Sheridan's response was. With all due respect, I've heard that before. It was in reference to Sheridan's destruction of the Minbari flagship ship, the Black Star, and he's in the midst of captaining a Minbari ship. And he's in the midst of captaining a Minbari crew on the White Star. Though, do appreciate how he specifically used the Marcab jump gate, the species who effectively went extinct in Confessions and Lamentations. I think we can start to paint a picture in our minds of why Sheridan's command style might make him good for this army of light. His specialty seems to be in defeating superior foes in unorthodox ways. And they basically... There's like a weird forced conversation in that first episode where Garibaldi basically says that. You remember? He's talking to Ivanova, and he's like, yeah, I looked up Sheridan, and the thing is, he's really good about turning a small defense into a big offense.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that.
Ivanova's like, yeah, that's it. That's the conversation. There's nothing.
Yeah, it is that. That is his characterization. You're right.
It was super weird and forced.
Yeah. But I think, yeah, I tried to somewhat address that in the discussion, but there's something like spiritually weird and fucked up about the fact that he's taking their ship and using it to fight another enemy. Like, he's always going to find another unbeatable enemy and find the one cheesy way to beat them no matter what. And that's just a dangerous way to live and will presumably blow up in his face repeatedly on this show. Because you can't live on that mindset of like, I'm gonna be the one. I'm gonna be really good.
And I think what Dan is saying is fucked up is Delenn being like, we can't beat them, and he's saying, well, I blew up your fucking shit.
I did it to you guys, so I can do it again. Yeah, that's messed up. Because she was also like a leader. She was like one of the main. She was in the Great Council at that time. So it's like, yeah, right under your jurisdiction was a ship that I nuked, so I'm good. I know what I'm doing. Yeah. It's good stuff. Good stuff. I miss Marcus.
Yeah.
No Marcus this week. R.I.P. gone and came and gone. I mean, we'll talk about Lita in a bit, but the show has exactly enough characters right now to have like everyone that matters is in every episode, and then like they're not that the other like Lita and Marcus don't matter, but it's like they're around and we're gonna use them when they're needed.
Yeah, they don't matter. I think that's fine to say.
Okay, fair. Well, let's take it to a brief musical break, and then we're gonna get a guest on.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. And we'll be right back to discuss passing through Gethsemane.
Welcome back to Chatzylon 5. The second episode we watched this week was Season 3, Episode 4, Passing Through Gethsemane. That's how you say it, and that's how I've always said it. It was written by J. Michael Straczynski, directed by Adam Nimoy. It aired November 27th, 1995. It takes place from January 18th to February 4th, 2260. I'm still here with Alan. Hey, man.
Hi.
How you
Hello.
doing?
I'm well.
That's well. Can you tell us what happened in this episode real quick?
I can. In this episode, a kindly monk finds himself assailed by strange objects and previously hidden memories. Lead Alexander also returns to Babylon 5. Magellan, this episode seems heavy.
Yeah, it does. I feel like we need a kindly monk of our own to help us through this, and that's why we brought Tony Shalhoub. No,
God, no.
That's why we're joined for this episode by one of our lovely listeners, Stefan. Stefan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, guys. I really appreciate you having me on.
We appreciate you being here. So, Stefan, you asked to talk about this episode, and we always like to ask our guests why they chose the episode they chose. So, what about passing through Gethsemane spoke to you?
Well, really, it's all about the fact that at the end, Lita's got gills, and that's just so cool.
Yeah,
and there's
awesome.
nothing else to talk about in this
It's super
episode.
great,
Yeah, it's the gills. No, so this episode had a big impact on me as a kid. This was broadcast, as you said, like in '95.
Yep.
And I would have been a 13-year-old watching this. And it hit me just at the right point in my development. And like, it spoke to me. You know, I was sort of a genre science fiction fan. My aunt had gotten me into Star Trek. And it was sort of like, hey, I've got church in my sci-fi. You've got sci-fi in my church, you know. So it hit me at the right time in the right place. And really, and in a weird way, it ended up being like this formative experience in my sort of religious understanding. And it's a really great bit of moral quandary that, you know, vexes to this day.
Yeah.
And that's why this is sort of like, for me, like possibly a favorite for the whole series.
Yeah, it serves as a really good... Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
It serves as a really great primer for the thematic note that, like, sci-fi can be religious, and is. And Babylon 5, you know, from that time that we watched the pilot film, The Gathering, we saw that themes on the Wikipedia page, one of which was religion. We're like, that's really funny, because every sci-fi show has at some point something about spirituality or faith or the afterlife. And like, those two things aren't separated. And this episode is like, here's why. We're going to just call it Christianity. We're going to do the thing. We're not going to make like a fake religion. It's that.
I always appreciated, too, when I was young, that it was sort of like, oh, Roman Catholicism makes it to 2259 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, which, you know, is not always the case in your science fiction.
And it's a little moral tale, again, sorry, Magellan, it's a little moral tale that concerns itself with like themes that not only have we seen on Babylon 5 before, but like building to stuff that we're going to keep talking about, like this question of like, can you be forgiven for something that you don't remember doing, and the actual concrete actions of Psy-Core and how things like the death of personality can like have long-lasting effects on regular-ass people, not just government. Like, Psy-Core not only controls the government, but they control real people and ruin their lives.
Yeah, one of the things that's weird here, though, and this is like not clear because from the Quality of Mercy, where we sort of first hear about this, I went back and listened to your guys' take on it. I think the death of personality isn't actually done by telepaths, but like some machine, and so it's not necessarily the Psy-Core doing it. I was never quite sure if it was supposed to be.
But there is... Oh, no, maybe you're right. I thought there was that episode where, what's-her-face, where Talia does it, but she just scans the serial killer guy before he goes to...
Right. Yeah, like, I think she was like... And she only did it because there wasn't, like, a court telepath or something. And so, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I was under the impression it was, like, a machine that did the wiping, not necessarily the Psy-Core. But, like, don't tell... I mean, you can't say Psy-Core didn't make the machine. Right.
It just seems related to the like development of telepathy among humans.
Yeah, and the penchant to use it as literal mind control.
Right. So we can dive into the plot of this episode a little bit. I think one thing more I'll say about what we were just talking about regarding the Catholic Church making it to space. is that I appreciate that the episode has kind of a neutral stance on that, and that these monks are just kind of here to like figure out what religion even is, and their mission is to like, what's the main guy? Andrew? Is that his name?
Edward.
Edward.
Brother
Shoot.
Edward is the
Shoot, Edward. Edward states that his purpose is to learn all the names and faces of God from our alien brothers, or whatever he says, and I really like that. About that, made me happy. Really like that.
Yeah. It's a pretty neutral stance. It's also sort of the stance people sort of take when discussing ecumenism, or how the Catholic Church talks to other faiths and other denominations, right? They haven't always been that great, the Crusades, for one.
for example.
Just maybe. But they have, we're not always horrible.
A lot of people have gotten a lot of good things out of religion, and that is actually reflected really well in the episode. I think.
Yeah, one of the good things that you get out of religion is you're really good at chess. Actually.
Yeah, amazing at chess.
Yeah, and the monk quoting Martin Luther is nice too. That's top notch.
Is that what that quote was?
Well, I think it's a paraphrase of like, if I'm going to sin boldly.
Yeah.
So I heard that from my Lutheran father-in-law at one point.
Oh,
so.
At the beginning he's like, I'm going to do a really big sin, or whatever.
To quote Archer, it's a gun, Chekhov, Russian made,
Yeah, that's a very good, like, take that, atheists. He just, like, owns the crap out of Sheridan in a game of chess, and young monk Edward and Ivanova are like, wow, religion wins for once. That's awesome. Ivanova then cuts to getting really excited about Kosh's boat, and then we get this really wild shot of Lita Alexander coming back, just, like, kind of coming out of Kosh's ship in I describe it as a schlorp in my notes. She kind of schlorps out of Kosh's ship, and she's like, "What's up, guys? It's me, Lita. I'm back." And speaking of faith, she mentions that she was, and it's such a Bible parable kind of story. She's like, "I was out there in the middle of nowhere, no food, no water, no oxygen, and I knew I was gonna die. And then I looked up, and there was the Vorlon homeworld, and they came and they saved me, and I got to go there, and I saw so many things, and I can't tell you any of it." It's like, whoa. And to continue on this thread, I mean, she sees she's talking to everyone and says, "I'm back on Babylon 5 now. I work for you guys, but I mainly work for Kosh. I'm Kosh's I'm sort of like Kosh's attaché in a way." And then the best moment of all of the Lita stuff, I think, is when she's in the hallway, very calm. I think it's amazing that this actress is playing it like she is born again or something. Like she just comes back and is, she goes to the medical room with Franklin, and he's like, you didn't even have problems before, and now you're like better, and that's weird. And she's like, yeah, isn't it cool? I guess it's pretty cool. I have a smaller appendix now. I have a smaller appendix. My like weird minor ulcer that wasn't even a problem, gone. No, I breathe perfectly. I'm super fit. This is great. And then she encounters Londo in a hallway, and Londo, excited child as he is, horny child, is like, "Oh my God, Lita, you're so beautiful. Also, you saw Kosh. You saw the homeworld. What was that like?" And she's like, "But I'm not. It doesn't work like that. I'm not gonna tell you. Also, I hate you." She just instantly is like, "No, Londo, you suck."
Yes, and we will set you on fire if you try to talk to me again.
Yeah, she threatens to destroy him and instill a night. She says, like, "I will put a nightmare in your head every night for the rest of your life that you'll never be able to get over, and it'll ruin you." And then she leaves. He's like, "Ugh, how rude. Also, nightmares with what I've been going through sounds like nothing." Like, oh God. Londo's a nightmare. He's so desperate in this scene. He just wants anything good in his life to happen.
Yeah.
An opportunity presents himself, and he says, "Can I get a little bit of that happiness?" "No? You're gonna threaten me too? Okay, I guess back to my corner then."
Sad Londo.
I don't know how to feel about Lita Alexander. I mean, I guess we'll see more. She's just not a great actor. Right?
Well,
or am I crazy?
I don't think you're crazy. I mean, I think you can have an opinion. but I think the calm acting is extremely difficult, and this just like completely placid performance.
But she's also, it's calm, but also those moments where she's like, if you mess with me, I'll fucking kill you. I'm like, what? Who are you?
Yeah, she doesn't seem very threatening.
I don't even remember what your characterization was to remember if this is different or not. It just, I don't know.
I mean, I always thought, like, when she comes back, we're supposed to feel like, man, she's been through some stuff.
Yeah.
She's been through a lot of stuff.
I guess. So she's just on a hair trigger, you're saying?
Yeah, I don't want to say too much because there's more to come with the Lita character. Spoilers, but you can see that from box covers too. So
I'll withhold judgment, I guess. I'm apprehensive right now.
Right, I think it was our last guest who was saying, like, yeah, Lita, that stuff goes places. Because they were, when we were on Divided Loyalties, Olivia was like, yeah, the Lita stuff goes places I can't tell you about. I'm like, ugh. So we can't effectively read anything from Lita right now, not knowing where it's going to go without completely, like, embarrassing ourselves down the line. Yeah, you know, if I say, like, I think she's going to do this, it's going to be like, yeah, well, I'm going to be wrong. But I don't know.
So she slurps and she gets skills, and Londo tries to like hit on her, and that's it with Lita, right? Except what happens in the main plot.
Right. What happens in the main plot, where she's used as their sort of, this is presumably going to be her role for a little bit, is she's their extrajudicial telepath because she doesn't work with Psychor anymore. So they're like,
more police brutality.
Yeah.
And we're gonna
You're
glorify
right.
it and fetishize it because they're the good cops.
It's just
I actually,
yeah.
Sorry, when I watched this the first time and then the second time through when it came out on DVD and I sopped those up, I didn't actually catch the police brutality, but it was a very, this was 2000-ish, 2001-ish, didn't notice it. But like now watching it when you guys pointed out, I'm like, oh my God, what is going on here? This is not cool at all.
Yeah, there's just this super cop fantasy in Babylon 5 that it kind of is critical of, but it isn't fully self-aware of it. And I just think this show, like if JMS was writing the show today, that stuff would look a lot different.
Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah,
because he seems woke enough for I don't know. I follow him on Twitter and
he tweets a lot.
I like him.
He tweets so much.
Well, like the Lita Ivanova, or excuse me, the Talia Ivanova stuff. Pretty woke for the 1994, 95 when that's hitting the air.
Right, and we've got emails before where everyone's like, yeah, anytime guys are in the background holding hands, they're gay. He just can't make it canon, like, or he can't make it obvious. But he's been trying to like make this show that it's weird because he tries to make the show the liberal fantasy, but then like the labor episode doesn't address unions in a meaningful way. And A Day in the Strife starts with Sheridan being like a badass cool cop who knows when to put the gun down and be like
suppressing workers' rights and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, and it's like you need to commit to your own ideals, JMS.
But think about it this way, guys. They actually talk about workers. Like, so it's, from your conversations, you haven't. It doesn't seem like you've seen much Star Trek, but like in the Star Trek sort of world fantasy, it's like everything's fine now. We went through all this stuff, and we've got technology, and now we're all great. Whereas like Babylon 5, like no. It's the future. We've got our great big spinning can and the space station that we all hang out on, but like things are still messed up, and workers are still not treated right, and so like they at least mention them.
It's true. They're not ignoring the fact or glossing over the fact that people, like, there are still populations of people that have to work for a living and make money, and like limitations on society still exist in 2260. Like, we have Catholicism, but we also have
outraged. Let me be outraged.
You're allowed to be outraged. That's heckin' valid. But like, speaking of limitations, there's a really funny moment, just to jump ahead a teensy bit, where Brother Edward is looking up his own records, like about his life and the name Charlie and all that stuff. And then the computer is like, estimated time to get all this stuff together, 4 hours. And it's like, it's 2260. You should have better internet. Like, why does this only takes 4 hours because the episode needs it to. But technology-wise, you're definitely past the point where you need anything more than a second to find that much internet. Like today, you could find that faster.
So I think we've mostly cleared the chaff of this episode. The only other thing that happens outside of Brother Edward's plot that's of note is Garibaldi watching the news report, right?
Yep.
Some guy who is sentenced to death of personality. And in the moment we're watching, we're like, oh, weird that they're bringing this up. Yeah, that is creepy. Kind of odd that Garibaldi loves the electric chair. Kind of creeped me out.
Yeah.
Wasn't a huge fan.
Do you guys want to hear something about the actor's like life or not? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, so sort of a bummer. Later in life, Jerry Doyle becomes the guy who plays Garibaldi.
Yeah.
Becomes sort of a low rent Rush Limbaugh.
Yep.
Talk radio right winger.
No.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No.
I've known about this.
But he's dead now, so
yeah.
Oh,
American talk radio
It's,
host, right libertarian
right.
political commentator, television actor, and founder of the Epic Times content platform.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, no, Jerry.
yeah.
Jerry.
So he brings
Alan,
a bit.
I
He
love
brings
you for
something to
keeping this from
Garibaldi.
Yeah, I couldn't. 'cause
I asked if you wanted to know.
Exactly.
I didn't know that I didn't want to know, and now I know.
Oh God! There's a picture of him shaking Ron Paul's hand in 2011 on his Wikipedia page.
No.
I'm in hell. I'm in hell. Yeah.
Put the internet down. Put it down, guys. Put it down.
Just put it back.
Really,
You're right.
You spoke about the electric chair with too much real
Affection.
lip licking enthusiasm.
Tragic. He died in 2016. Oh, he just missed the Trump administration. He died in July of 2016. I got nothing. I can't talk about real people's lives and them dying and stuff.
Let's not.
Yeah. I mean, like, every time I try, because with other shows, it's like, oh, what's like Claudia Black doing today? Oh, she's still acting. That's awesome. But any actor I look up on Babylon 5, it's like either passed away tragically, passed away of old age and turned out to be a right-winger, or is still alive and not doing anything. Like, there's just no person involved in this show who you're like, wow, hell yeah, they're still doing great things.
Yeah, well, I think also Jerry Doyle also bringing it to like the character of Garibaldi. Like, I think he ended up dying of substance abuse overdose or something to that effect.
Nice.
Well, I mean, in his character, he's playing an alcoholic.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
And so there's a bit that is brought that he brings that has some authenticity,
Some truth to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's talk about some monks, guys.
Yeah, Cistercian monks, Trappist monks in the future. They actually appear to be based on their habit, the garb they wear, and then like some Googling. There is a monastery in New Mallory in Iowa. They're Cistercian Trappist monks. They make caskets and sell them.
Yeah, I think Fetty Wap was actually part of that.
Shut up. Bad.
So yeah, monks, Cistercian monks.
Yep. And Brother Edward is the one that we're focusing on, played just incredibly this week by what's the actor's name? Brad Dourif. Amazing actor. He's honestly one of those like I know this guy from everything kind of actors.
Yeah, when I saw this, I knew him from is the Mentat from Dune.
Yep, from Dune. Yep. Well, I knew him from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. As Billy.
I didn't recognize him, but he reminded me of Matt Gorley, the improviser,
comedian.
So it took me a minute to be like, oh, he's a serious guy.
Yeah. He's Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings, if you have that point of reference.
Sure.
So he's done so many things, and he's put on so many different faces, and he brings, like, I don't know how old he is in this, but he feels like a very young guy.
I think it's 30s, maybe, that's the vibe I got.
Right? But he brings this, like, immaturity and, like, wonder about the world and desire to understand things that I really like, which brings his come down all the more heavy down on you.
I adored his conversation with Delenn and Lanier.
Yep.
With the whole bit about how they say the soul is a non-localized phenomenon, like a flashlight shining at a wall, and it's like, oh fuck yeah, sure, I'll buy that. That's the best religion I've ever heard.
The Plato reference, I guess, right?
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Yep. The caves and the people in the dark cave.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, and it's another view of faith that doesn't necessarily conflict with the like Christian view of Brother Edward and company and the other monks. Because I think that's another important thing that this episode posits is like, yeah, we have all these different views on what is like a higher power and what controls us, but it all kind of comes back to like, we just want to know that somebody's looking out for us and that we have a chance beyond ourselves. That's kind of like what I thought was a common thread amongst all of these things. Because like Lita with Kosh is like, yeah, I put faith in the high divine and it came and helped me. And no one's going to believe me, but I believe in it myself. And Delenn and Lanier are very proudly comfortable saying that like we are all the outstretched fingers of the world trying to understand itself. And Brother Edward is fascinated by this and like absorbs that info and is very happy about it. So he walks out, he sees...
well, we shouldn't skip over. He talks about what gives the episode its title.
Yes.
Which I didn't know.
I watched this scene 3 times.
You did?
Yeah, because it was so good.
I didn't know this little Jesus tale before, but he didn't know if he wanted to do it, huh? The dying part?
Well, yeah, this is one of those things that there's
is this sort of like the Bible quote from Pulp Fiction where like Jane is actually...
No, it's so earlier in there's we'll get to this sort of later, but I'll sort of introduce the general concept now for those who don't know really quickly. In the mid and late 60s, the Roman Catholic Church goes through what colloquially is called Vatican II, or the Second Vatican Council, and things take a turn, right? Yeah. So there's things before the Second Vatican Council, and there's things after. And sort of in the before land, what was sort of thought was like, oh, he's weeping in the garden. He's weeping for all the sins of humanity and how basically, oh, humanity's so horrible and Jesus is so great, right?
Yeah.
And then like later, like the idea of the humanization of Jesus is a much bigger deal. And I actually don't know when this sort of question of he didn't like the idea he didn't want to do it, right? So that sort of comes up in sort of some pop understandings of Gethsemane, like Jesus Christ Superstar, to name probably the most common people may have seen, heard, but like sort of the idea he didn't want to do it. This was sort of introduced to me here when I was, like I said, I was 13 watching this episode.
Yeah.
And that humanization was what was so formative to me personally.
Right.
But he didn't want to do it. Like that's definitely the thing, like the will this cup pass bit.
Right. It was really surprising to me too, because I hadn't heard about this, and I think I come from an Antiochian Orthodox upbringing. We don't talk about Jesus as a flawed person that much, or the church doesn't, at least from the like sermons that I've attended. It's more about like he did great things and he died for our sins, period. That was an objectively good thing. It's not like we're not going to humanize him to make it more relatable. He doesn't need to be relatable. We just need to have faith that he was good and we strive to be like that. Yeah. And it ends there.
I think that's what always bugged me about just about Jesus. I was going to say. But this idea of like Jesus was always presented to me as this dude was great. He knew that he was the Son of God, and he like healed people and all this crap, and then he died for us. And it's like that just feels arbitrary that God circumvented original sin with this loophole that like if I just invent this guy to die, then it's all good. And it's much more compelling to me as a story to say like Jesus was a man who had to have faith in the fact that he was the Son of God and overcame the mortal like fears and doubts and concerns that you will overcome when you like put faith in believing in him. And it's through his like human act of faith that he redeemed everybody. And like what you have to do is go through a similar process to receive what he did for you, basically. And I never understood it that way, and like this episode is where I'm first understanding it that way.
Yeah, I think this does get back to this idea of one of the big things that gets reemphasized is the idea, that Jesus is wholly human, right? He's not a God man, that he is both divine and human. It's that humanity that is so important, right? Because otherwise, like, God's God and he's up there and just Holy Spirit's everywhere around you, but Jesus is like the connection, the physical connection to someone who was a person, right? Flesh and blood, And so, like, yeah, it's a really powerful way of sort of getting into it. And like that sort of discussion of, oh, what does he know? Is there a broader, like, did he know the plan? He sort of knew the plan. What level of divinity does he have at this point? This is like one of these things that
before
was discussed
he dies,
on and exactly before he dies. On and on is a discussion, and sort of early in church history, I think there's some early heresies that get into this, like, oh, well, Jesus wasn't really a man, so when he's crucified, it didn't hurt. And then, over time, like, the church was like, no, dude, no, he was.
Right,
that's not how it works.
It's a fundamental disagreement. Like, you can't say, this isn't an argument where you can say, like, oh, you're entitled to that, because if you think that Jesus was a man and he was hurt by it, then that's the whole, like, moral success of the Gethsemane story, is like a regular dude decided, I'm going to take one for the whole world.
Exactly.
That completely goes against the other belief, which is like, no, he was flawless and he was not a human.
Right.
Which is fascinating. Like, this is not a saleable argument. It, like, has to be decided on by the individual. So I find that stuff really fascinating, and so does Brother Edward, clearly, as he is questioning that and mentions that he doesn't know if he himself could do the same thing. That's why I watched that scene over and over again, is because it's just, like, beautifully delivered, and it really, like, got the gears spinning in my head of, like, what does forgiveness look like in real life, and, like, how do we decide when our sacrifice has come, and what does it look like, and what does sacrifice look like? And then it becomes a Babylon 5 episode, and then he starts having weird visions. Black Rose murder, text on the wall that says "Death walks among you," which, hey guys, fun fact, fun little trivia, is one of Reaper's quotes from the video game Overwatch. Whenever he is selected in the game, he says, "Death walks among you." And I'm going to go ahead and say maybe the Blizzard developers are like Babylon 5 nerds, but that seems a little obscure, and the line is also just good, but it's exactly "Death walks among you." So I thought, like, oh wait, that's the thing with the line, So he's worrying about the blood stuff, and he asks Garibaldi to check it out, and the blood keeps going away. I really don't like the way that this whole, like, his visions are proved to be real. I think it's really corny that he's like, it's blood on the wall, and then someone comes by and it's gone. Like, no, I swear it was there. And Garibaldi's like, oh, they used a chemical that goes away in 2 minutes. It's like, okay, I'll take you on that. Thanks.
It's a little bargain bin horror, that sort of stuff.
Right. And he's having all of these, like, weird visions, and at some point he hears a woman screaming. I believe it's a Centauri who, like, touches him on the shoulder while he's leaving one of the rooms in a conversation, and then he's like, "Excuse me," and the guy's like, "It's okay, dude, don't worry about it." He sees more bloody text. He sees a woman screaming, and then he hears voices saying, "You killed her, Charlie. You killed her, Charlie, Charlie, Charlie."
And then the horrific sound of a power drill.
Yeah, it's like they pulled out the Foley board, and they were like, "What other noises do we have? What other, like, scary noises are there?" He has a vision of himself where he has a really bad goatee, like a really unfortunate facial hair, and he, like, cuts a rose. And then we get the reintroduction of Brother Theo from the other episode, like the head of the monks, who's comforting him, but kind of being like, "Oh, just put it out of your mind. It's probably nothing."
And it seems like Brother Theo knows what's going on. That's the sense that I got. And then the episode was kind of like, no, he doesn't. And then at the end, the episode is like, yeah, he knew.
He knew all along. It's the characterization of Brother Theo in this episode, especially in the ending, is so weird.
Really strange.
How do you mean by that, Alan? Like, what's weird to you about Theo in this episode?
Well, because early on he's this, like, guiding figure, and he's there to help Brother Edward understand his faith. And then as Edward realizes that that's not his original name, that he is the, like, new life of a person who was given the death of personality after they committed multiple crimes, Charles Dexter, he kind of becomes this, like, nurturing figure, like, no, it's okay, Edward, you're still yourself, you're allowed forgiveness, like, I'm gonna allow you. And he says it like, you're going to be okay, you can move on, everyone deserves forgiveness. But then in the end of the episode, there just seems to be something really sinister about the fact that he's doing it again. Brother Theo is just like, yeah, we have another one of them.
Yeah, to me, Theo seems to be just acting like sort of like an idealized version of what a priest should be doing, or a abbot, head of an order should be doing for their monks or for their congregants or people, right? Like he's so like in the beginning he's sort of like chess wizard man, right? But then we get to he sees how upset Edward is, and he's clearly freaked out too. And I mean, maybe this has happened before, right? For them, who knows? But like, he really seemed like he was just genuinely concerned, and like the response there. And if we want, we can just move to that conversation that the two of them have through the grate, right? Because that's
the great. Oh, I love
the
this
great scene. Yeah, the great scene. The great
scene. Yep.
The great scene. Yeah. So this scene actually is one of the most interesting that I sort of see in this episode, because this sort of epitomizes that sort of tension I was sort of talking about between pre and post Vatican II sort of understandings of sin, right? And what Edward is laying down is, oh, I can never be forgiven, this is so horrible, this stain is upon me, is very much an old idea. So like in the ye olde days of yore, read before 1965, you'd go to confession and the priest literally had a book. It's called a moral manual. It's like, oh, you stole a pack of gum, that's 5 Hail Marys and this many that's. You know what I mean? And then afterward, like it's no longer viewed as, oh, you hit your brother, therefore 10 rosaries and a novena. It's no longer this sort of formulaic sense, and it's no longer this like atonement sense, and it becomes like why did you do this? How can you not do this? How can you be better? Make it, this sort of make an effort. So like the great scene is sort of epitomizing this, because like, and even to go farther, like there are still sort of very traditionalist people who go, oh, if you go to confession, you can't think of any sins, you got to confess an old one, because that apparently still
you have
matters.
Something in there, right?
That's right, because you got to do it, right? And so like this very like blood sacrifice, nothing can be forgiven idea is this very old world, burned in stone approach. Whereas like then what Theo is going down is like the desire of the contrite heart, right? You show contrition, you want to be forgiven. And then in the Catholic sense, he's spending his whole life as a monk, devoting the work of learning about God, serving the community, like he's living a life of humility, poverty, and penance. And so like that tension I always thought was the most interesting part. And I always sort of thought it came from the fact that, J. Michael Straczynski, very Polish Catholic, pro tip, Stefan, very Polish Catholic, right? It very much reminds me of like that old world understanding is like listening to my grandparents, when they were, and then like this sort of new world approach was like, no, you can be forgiven if you want to be forgiven. God knows your sins. You just must do these things. You must be contrite. You must do penance. You must do acts of penance. And
I guess here's where the ambiguity comes in for me with what Theo's doing. It's related to ultimately what you believe the soul to be, and whether or not you believe that death of personality has any bearing on the presence or the shape of your soul. Because it would seem to be, from what you're saying, that in this newer conception of sin, the way that you are forgiven is you like recognize and confront what you've done wrong and the reasons that you did it, and then you atone for that. But you can't fully, meaningfully atone. And I think Edward says this, like, how can I ask God to forgive my sins if I don't even know them? If I don't know what they are. Yeah. And so I don't know if what Theo's doing is really in that way. It seems more that it's kind of a manipulative way to just get monks in his order, because these personalities are personalities that are invented rather than like real people.
Right, but also Theo's only known Edward as this guy, right?
But
you know what I mean?
But I get the sense that Theo is purposefully taking in death of personality people into his fold.
Oh, I didn't read that personally.
That was the implication I got at the end, because Sheridan sees his new friend,
right, Malcolm,
and recoils at him. And so I thought we were supposed to recognize that guy as like a killer or something.
Yeah, that was the killer. That was Edward's killer at the end.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So at the end, Theo, who he's shipping back to Earth to the Abbey to be trained, that's the dude who crucified Edward.
Okay.
Oh my God!
I didn't.
Yeah. So what's going down in that scene is not about just I need people. It's this guy killed my friend, and I'm going to take him in, and he's going to live this life, and he's going to do this. Now, I don't think, like, in an ideal world, like, I don't think Theo would probably think this is right, but it's sort of you live in the world you live in.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so that's very much the epitome of the statement of love the sinner, hate the sin.
Hate the sin, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like he's taking the guy who murdered the friend of the monks, and they're like, nope, we're gonna look after this guy, and he's gonna go back to Earth where we'll never see him again because we cannot bear to see him, right? And we're gonna work on forgiving him, because we have to, because that's what we're called to do, right? The forgiveness being the hardest thing that sort of Theo and Sheridan are talking about, right? Like, that's why it's hard, because this is the guy who killed their friend. And so, like, to me, it seems like Theo is doing his best to be a good head of the order and, like, live out what he's supposed to do. Like, love your enemies.
He's constantly loving he has to constantly love his enemies and raise them and nurture them, because that's the nature of his job. Is like, you're going to be given new people who you're going to know are bad people, but you're going to deal with, and you're going to say, oh, you're a new person now, I give you another chance.
Yeah.
The way I land on that, I guess we can call it the great scene. I didn't even realize that it's supposed to visually mimic confession until the very end. Like, there's literally a shot where, like, Brother Edward is, like, looking to the side as Brother Theo looks straight at him and says, like, tell me what you've done, you are forgiven. And I was like, oh, I get it. Like, the visual metaphor is clear enough.
Yeah.
I think two things. One, we joked about Brother Theo and the monks serving, like, seemingly no purpose on Babylon 5. Like, this show that, even though it's about religion, is like, but why are there monks? Like, what is this purpose? And it's something about, like, being given another chance. And my other point is, like, when we had that episode where they first introduced death of personality, we had that great discussion of, like, are you getting rid of the person truly? And, like, are they a new person? And is that any worse than killing them? And this is the best, like, moral discussion of that topic that I could have asked for. Is this guy being like, am I, me, the soul that is me, personally responsible for murdering all those women? Or is that no longer me? Can I dissociate from that enough that it doesn't affect me and it doesn't feel, like, burdened on my soul? And he struggles with that, and he kind of lands on, like, no, it burdens me. And he ends up being crucified. And then the ultimate allegory, right? Edward dies for the sins of another person, right? The Christ figure here, right? That he's literally atoning. You're good at this.
Sorry, he's literally atoning for the sins of Dexter. Someone else. But I mean, like, you could think about this, like, and think about it this way, right? Like, so say you'd done horrible things, have a horrible head injury.
Yeah.
And then you're around and you don't remember any of them. Like, it's a real thing you could go through, right?
Yeah.
And this sort of comes to the Catholic understanding of culpability. Are you culpable for what you did? Meaning, are you to blame? And are you responsible, right? And so to some extent, the tension also is Edward is not culpable. The person who did this, the personality is destroyed. He himself isn't culpable, but the feelings of responsibility are such that he can't bear it.
Right.
I mean, the idea that, like, also, like, I don't know, I find this death of personality thing to be grim and grotesque, right? Like, it's worse than death, you know? And just, I guess people might think it was I don't know, sort of you could think about like why this became a thing, but in this sort of fictional universe, but it's also just maybe it's more palatable than capital punishment, but it's far more wrong. You know, it's even more degrading of the person, right? The person being both the body and the mind and the soul.
Mm-hmm.
But so I don't know, like it's totally the death of personality thing. It just always sort of for me weighs on this episode of like, what the heck to think about this? And I always go round and round and come back to, this is horrifying. We should never, if we could do this, we should never do this. And like, you know,
right? Yeah, it's fascinating that Garibaldi, when he watches the TV, says like, yeah, everybody kind of agreed on Earth that this is better than the electric chair. And it's like, what got us there? What about 2260 and like the wars that they went through got them to conclude that like, yes, this is objectively a better thing, is putting people to work and restarting their lives as a new person is better than just ending them cleanly.
Well, it also just screwy, right? Because like he says, oh, well, it's cheaper, right? And it seems like that's the motivation, which is even more horrifying, right? But I mean, but this also is a bigger question for us today of like, what is it supposed to mean to be incarcerated or to be punished for crimes? Are you supposed to be punished for crimes? Are you supposed to be rehabilitated for crimes? Right? In an ideal world, you shouldn't lock people up and throw them away. You should try and find a way to have people be part of society again. I mean, some people you can't, but you know.
Right. There's no, it's something that on the surface looks like a moralistic approach or like rehabilitation. But in actuality, it's just like, oh, okay, you committed enough crimes that now we can use your meat husk as a slave. And
right.
And that's what happens to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a really heavy one, honestly. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's a really heavy one. I think just to bring it back to discussing this as an episode of television, really goes against our thing of like filler episodes and the idea that filler episodes aren't.
I was gonna say I always, when there's an episode who like that introduces you to a character and then like,
kills them.
You really got to care about this guy. And then he dies. Every other time that's happened on the show, I've been like, Babylon 5. You can't do that. You have so many good characters. And this time I cried.
Yeah.
Yeah, last week you guys were talking about, oh, this is a filler episode. And I'm like, oh no, what are they going to think of this? This is the ultimate filler episode. You know, because other than Lita having gills, there's just nothing in the arc here.
Yeah. When Brother Theo was forgiving Edward and blessing him as he was dying, I was like in tears.
Yeah.
That's...
That scene brings me to tears. I've watched this I don't know how many times, but it brings me to tears every time. It's the dialogue there is a sort of summation / not quite perfect version of the last rite of severe unction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somewhat, the blessing of the dying in the last confession.
I will spoil it for Stefan. That is, I opened the episode with that. And I mean we're very extra here at Chatzylon Studios in sunny
Brisbane,
Kansas, sunny Kansas.
What did you say, Majan?
Brisbane.
Thank you. Brisbane. So I was like, yeah, take the Bible quote that's like from the saddest scene in the episode and turn it into my silly intro. Hell yeah, I'll do that. But it is amazing in context. It is like just one of those good moments. And I think regarding this episode's position as filler, it's good filler when it contributes to the themes of the overall show. And this is a show about faith and religion a lot of times, and so that is fine with me. Sure. Whereas an episode that's like, this serial killer hates Sheridan, I'm like, why? Like, what are we contributing to here? Because that's 45 minutes of my life. I don't have all the time in the world. I can't just watch these episodes where nothing happens. It's, whatever. But, Ivanova recaps the whole epilogue to Lita. Brother Theo gives Sheridan Edwards' last finished art crystal thing. What is that?
I couldn't tell. Some carving of an animal.
Oh, I thought it was
like an origami swamp.
Yeah.
Crystal origami. And then, Brother Malcolm is the new Brother Edward, which is very scary. And then, just in case you forgot that this is a silly sci-fi show, it ends with Lita open-mouth kissing Kosh in the face as we fade to credits. just and developing gills. Yeah. Whatever. I guess they just hang out. That's just how they hang out.
It was just a palate cleanser to get rid of any sentiment that you may have been.
There is something there. There is something about it being a reset. Like they don't always want to end the episode on. This show always has to have 10 endings. We joke about that. So if it ended on the prayer, like the Brother Theo prayer, how would you feel about that? Would that make a better episode?
Yes,
I don't think so. I think I think that it ending on the Malcolm, the mind wipe victim, now going back to Earth as a monk is far more affecting. And because then the one last time JMS tries to lay something on us, which is like Sheridan in talking to Theo, like, where does justice begin? Where does revenge end and justice begin? Or where does justice end and revenge begin?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, my argument is, that killing someone, that's revenge. That's no go. You don't get to do that. That's why I personally, capital punishment bad, right? The state doesn't get to decide to kill people for me, and because it's revenge, right? It doesn't do anything. It doesn't bring anyone back. Mm-hmm. It just makes people like Garibaldi feel better.
That's a good point. That's actually a very good point. Yeah. And I think choosing, if you're the editor, technically a beautiful way to end the order of operations is Ivanova recaps the epilogue to Lita, then Lita open mouth kisses Kosh, then the Brother Theo gives him the finished art thing, so he's like, wow, Edward was such a great guy. Then we end on Brother Malcolm. That's pitch perfect. You nailed it. That's the scene you have to end on. Fade out with Sheridan being like, God damn, what is forgiveness? What is revenge? But ending on Lita.
Well, no, but ending on Lita is like, hey guys, if you didn't dig this, remember, there's some crazy Vorlon stuff going down. It's
come back next week for a plot episode. Yeah, which is what that suggests. Yeah, it's definitely an intentional thing to put that at the end there. So yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought this was a great thought provoking one, and got a good discussion out of us. John, I have a question for you though.
Yes, sir.
Yes, what are we watching next week on Chatzylon 5?
Oh, as if I'd tell you.
Please tell me.
Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Well, Alan, next week we're watching 2 more episodes of Babylon 5, of course. Can you believe it?
Of course.
Can you believe it? It's the next 2 episodes of Season 3 of Babylon 5, which, of course, are... Season 3, Episode 5, Voices of Authority, and Season 3, Episode 6, Dust to Dust. First, we're watching Episode 5, Voices of Authority. There's a new powerful ally in the fight against the shadows.
Amazon is so useless!
I know. Then, we're watching Dust to Dust. A psychop investigates a powerful illegal drug on Babylon 5, but Sheridan distrusts his motives. Jakar makes startling discoveries about Londo. Now that sounds good.
Yeah, Voices of Authority is a big one, apparently.
That sounds real good.
And, I know a character that we kind of theoretically like. Drawl is back, guys.
Drawl?
That's all I know. Drawl, remember Drawl?
No. Who's Drawl?
Magellan, you can't forget important character. Drawl's the guy on the planet.
Oh, what? The guy who's inside the machine planet?
Yes.
Why do I don't care about him. Why are you getting mad at me?
I'm pissed.
He sucks.
Drawl's awesome. What are you talking about? Drawl sucks.
Fun fact, the guy who played Drawl the first time?
No. He's not also a libertarian radio host, is he?
No. He plays Brother Theo.
Oh, he did seem familiar.
Oh, but the first time. Now it's a different Drawl?
Yeah. Drawl from first season, played by the guy who plays Brother Theo.
Oh.
Every other Drawl, new guy who plays Drawl.
You're right. I'm looking at pictures. Wow, look at that.
Because he got young and hot, right?
Sure. Sure. Well, that's very exciting. Stefan, thank you for joining us on this episode.
Yeah, again, thanks for having me, guys. This is fun.
Yeah, I appreciate your insight. Do you have anything that you'd like to plug?
Nah.
Valid.
Cool.
I have no plugs to give.
Do you have a chatsome? Do you have a thing that you just want to recommend the kids at home check out?
Okay, so Deep Chatsum.
Yeah.
If people are interested in it, it's sort of modestly related to the Vimbari religion.
Mhm.
If people want to go down a rabbit hole of some pretty interesting sort of Catholic-y stuff, the Phenomenon of Man by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. He was a natural scientist in the 40s, 50s, I don't remember exactly when, but he had this whole idea that all of the universe that is conscious evolves toward the omega point, which is basically when all of reality is united to the divine. So he was sort of a biologist who thought about these big things, and there you go. It's some pretty out there, oldie, Catholic-y stuff.
I'm into it. I'll take it to the chats plugs next. You can always email us at chatspot@gmail.com if you have questions or comments, or if you would like to do what Stefan did and to be on an episode of the show. You can also tweet at us at chatspot if you want to send us messages there, and follow us there for updates on the show. Rate us on iTunes and your podcast platform of choice to help us get the show out there, and consider backing us at patreon.com/chatspot, where you can get monthly commentaries and bi-weekly hangout shows.
Yeah.
Majan, do you have a chatsome for this week?
Yeah, it's kind of a self-serving chatsome. Is that okay?
That is very... You did Carly Rae Jepsen last week, bud. You're good.
Oh, great. Okay. So I am starting a new podcast that people can check out. I don't know if I've brought this up before or not. But my roommate Charlie, who was on our commentary of what is it called? The Gathering? Is that the
Yes.
name? Yeah. He was with us watching The Gathering at the very beginning of our Babylon 5 journey. He had an idea for a podcast where essentially he is only allowed to get his news from Fox News. And then we talk to each other just about what's going on in the world and try to have a conversation and see what comes of that. So that show, it exists now. It's called What the Fox. And you can, for now, check it out at whatthefox.simplecast.fm, and it'll be on iTunes pretty soon. So give it a listen, please, wouldn't you? Alan, what about you?
Well, Majan, I have a couple of things. I've just been like enjoying a lot of media at once this week, because I haven't been working as much. So I've been like building this Gunpla, which for the last week or so, which has been a lot of fun. Gunpla, for people who don't know, is short for Gundam Plastic. It's a model building kit series where you can they give you a bunch of plastic that you cut out of a rack of plastic, and then you connect them together and follow instructions, and you build a little robot and you pose it, and it looks cool. Been a very relaxing hobby for me. I've been doing it for like a year now. Not the same one. I've built like 5 over the last year. And I love it. If you want to try one, I mean, you can get like a high grade kit off of Amazon for like $15. Just pick one that looks cool and build it. I might have even recommended this before. I just really like it. But I've been doing that while catching up on the last couple of albums in my Spotify queue. And I discovered recently that little independent rapper by the name of Drake put out an album back in 2009 called So Far Gone. And he just recently put it on streaming platforms. And if you've ever wanted to understand what the aesthetic of 2009 was like, that record is so interesting because it's really loud and really like proud, but it's before Drake was like famous. So it's kind of this like false like chest puffing upness of like, I'm so successful and I want to be successful and I'm doing the work. And it's like, Drake, you're like 24, dude. Like, what are you saying about fame in this song? I just find it's just a really interesting listen, even if you don't care that much for Drake. I don't think you should support Drake as an artist that much. He seems like kind of a yucky dude, but I mean, I'm of the opinion that you can often separate the work from the artist a little bit. And yeah, So Far Gone. It's a good little mixtape to listen to while building robots.
Cool.
And that, dear listener, is going to do it for this episode of Chatzylon 5. Peace.